Hello and welcome to the British Dapper, and today we're talking about best autumn mid-layers for men. Stylish outfit choices. So this is the fourth in a series of videos in relation to autumn 2025 and what's currently trending, and my own recommendations for what would fit in the autumn period for men's attire. But what I would say as a caveat over all of this is that if you are wearing something you enjoy wearing, that's the main thing. Despite any trends or current flashes of inspiration that come from the fashion industry, if you dress in a classical style and you dress in a certain manner, then why should you change that? If you're happy with that look, that's great. This video is really just to give somebody a little bit more insight into maybe changing or adapting what they already wear, or maybe give them some insight into what they might like to look like in the future if they're starting on their sartorial journey. So today we're covering that awkward area, the mid-layering, if you like, the mid-layer of men's attire. So we're talking specifically about the use of waistcoats, sweaters of varying degrees, and that could be as a standalone item, or it could be underneath a jacket or a suit or something along those lines. And so this video today is exploring the diversity of using a mid-layer and how it can benefit you when you're wearing your ensemble in the autumn period, to pick up on some of those trending colours, but not only that, add a little bit of spice to your overall look for the autumn period. So let's start off with those trending colours, and in this case I'm wearing a pink shirt, and we know that pink is one of those trending colours for the autumn 2025 period. But I've used a much paler pink on this occasion. Pink is always complemented by blue, so we've picked up some of those pinks in the actual tie, along with a trending raspberry colour. But we're using a blue background on the tie for that. We're using a blue herringbone patterned waistcoat. Now some would call this a waistcoat because it's not matching a suit or a pair of trousers or a jacket, so therefore it's a standalone item. In this case it's quite a rural country vibe look that we're looking at, with the introduction of this type of waistcoat, which is a heavy tweed material. But in other situations it could be a much more refined waistcoat, and particularly goes well with a three-piece suit. And with that I mean a matching waistcoat with the jacket and trousers made from the same cut of fabric. However, if you can't afford a three-piece suit or don't own one, you could go for a suit look where we introduce a waistcoat as a separate item. And this would be a non-matching waistcoat, and actually does add something to the overall look. And it can bring a pop of colour, and it defines this area here a bit more when wearing a suit. It can also really enhance the look, and different materials can be employed with that suit. So it could be much more refined, very much like a suit material. It could be quite a shiny material, for example satin or silk waistcoats. But then again it could be as simple as a velvet waistcoat or a suede waistcoat, which actually does give a little bit more texture and a bit more substance to the overall look. So waistcoats are brilliant for that increase in the pop of colour, texture, and also does give you a little bit more substance in the overall ensemble that you're going for. Ideally, it not only does that, but it also gives you an extra layer of warmth in the colder months. Now the great thing about a waistcoat is it can also go underneath a traditional jacket, for example a tweed jacket, and it does again the same principle. It lifts it a little bit more, it refines the look a little bit more and tapers down this look. So if you're wearing a tie, it really does accentuate the area where the tie is, which is ideal for that situation where we're wearing a tweed jacket, for example, maybe a darker waistcoat, and a nice striped tie or a pattern tie really does accentuate that look. But equally, you could wear it without a tie and wear it with a pair of jeans or a much more relaxed look. For example, with a pair of chinos or those classic winter looking fabrics, for example, corduroy or moleskin. Really does accentuate the look overall. And with a thick waistcoat or waistcoat, you really do get a great look for a casual setting. Now in this case I'm wearing one that's quite a dark blue one, and here's an example of something I'm wearing here, and you can see quite clearly that it really does accentuate the tie and the overall look, and it's a great utility item as well. It has pockets in this case, so you can put your things in the pockets without any complications at all. Something else to consider though is the tweed version. For example, in this case a brown tweed with an overcheck goes particularly well with that similar sort of country vibe look. Again, we could employ a velvet waistcoat, and in this case it really does give a pop of colour to what is traditionally quite a simple country look. If we're wearing a suit, a two-piece suit for example with an autumn look to it, or an autumn winter weight suit, then we might want to incorporate that velvet. In this case we're using a emerald green or a field green velvet waistcoat. Really does help that overall look. We're wearing a burgundy tie with this, and whilst we say that raspberry is trending at the moment, I still think there's a place for those traditional colours, those burgundies, those burnt oranges, those sort of colours I think will still prevail in the autumn period this year, because they are very much a traditional colour and choice to make. Whereas the trending colours, they are quite fleeting, I believe, in that they are more fashion orientated, so they will not last the test of time as an overall look. Now when it comes to that mid layer, instead of wearing this waistcoat as an example, we could as a standalone wear a jumper. Lamb's wool jumpers are fantastic for keeping you warm. They add a little bit of texture, and also they also look good with a pair of jeans or a pair of chinos as a standalone item. And they can be thin or thick, and you have a varying amount of styles. So for example, I think a thin lamb's wool jumper is ideal for those cooler summer periods into the early autumn period where it's still quite warm, all the way up to a thick chunky one when we're heading into winter. And that range gives you so much flexibility. It can go under a jacket, it can go solo, just wearing the jumper itself with a pair of trousers, a pair of shoes, and it really does have a good look. Similarly with the thicker jumpers as well, they go particularly well with a pair of casual trousers and shoes, and you can even wear a tie with them if you get a V-neck jumper. But when it gets that little bit colder, it gives you that extra insulating layer. And could also look at that chunky jumper. In this case we're using a burnt orange jumper, quite a bright colour actually, but it goes particularly well with a pair of jeans, a pair of brogue shoes, maybe match the socks with the jumper, be a little bit different, and it's great for that colder morning or daytime trip where you don't want to wear a coat, a little bit warm for maybe that and a jacket. So maybe this is a good compromise for early autumn period. Equally, with those earthy tones that we know are trending at the moment, you could go for a jumper that picks up on a few of those different colours. And in this case, I'm using a jumper that's very much Italian colours and inspired by that Neapolitan look. So you've got stripes going across the jumper, and in this we've got some blacks, some coffee colours, some greys, but overall quite a neutral look, quite a relaxed look. But it goes particularly well with a pair of chinos, or it could go with a pair of corduroys, a pair of boots or shoes in this case. But one of the best looks or best items to purchase in that lighter part of autumn is something like a really chunky cardigan. Now the cardigan is a great addition to your wardrobe, goes really well with those corduroy trousers, those thicker robust looking trousers, and I think an Aran pattern or something like that is a really great look for the end of autumn, and even carries you through into the winter months as a very casual style. Equally, you could buy a very fine lamb's wool version of a cardigan, and that goes particularly well even as a mid layer under a jacket. In the earlier autumn, it would still give you that extra little layer and still not be too thick to create an overheating situation. So when it comes to colour ranges, for example, lamb's wool jumpers come in a variety of colours, but I think you can't really go wrong with a tan or a beige coloured one. It goes with just about anything because of that being a neutral colour. It goes well underneath a tweed jacket or standalone on its own with a pair of corduroy trousers or a pair of chinos, and you can wear it with a shirt, a cravat or a tie. It still goes really well. Similarly, a forest green version of that or a wine version of that goes particularly well in the autumn winter months, and it's great. You can even wear it with a pair of jeans and a pair of brogue shoes or a pair of boots, and you've still got a great look for the autumn winter period, and it's a very casual look that you could wear in most situations on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, if we're looking at more of a office situation, then we're looking at more suited materials being used, and with that more of a suit cut and design in the waistcoat or in the suit itself. But you can sometimes slip underneath that suit. We could slip in something that's like a navy or a lighter blue, very fine wool cardigan, or even a sleeveless jumper, and it still gives you that extra layer and gives you that little bit of detail which would still be good in the office situation. So I'd just like to remind you about our Patreon page, which is open to people to join. I'll put the link down below so you can check it out, but it depends on the level of access you have, depends on the facilities that we provide you with, but it automatically gives you access to our WhatsApp group for internal discussions amongst the Patreon group. You're also able to access monthly free videos, additional content, and depending on the level, then it goes up to weekly additional content videos, behind the scenes discussions or information about what we intend to do over the next coming weeks. Also have access to monthly Q&A sessions via a Zoom call with myself and other members, or one-to-one coaching or just chats with myself about anything that you have an issue with in your ensemble or something you're planning to wear in the future. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, then please feel free to do so. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you'd like to make a contribution to the channel, then please feel free to do so. We also love constructive comments, so if you'd like to make some, jot them down below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you've got a question you'd like to pose to us or you'd like an answer to, then why not jot it down? We'll try and answer your question for you. We also like ideas for future videos, so if you want to make a contribution and make a suggestion about future content, then please, again, jot it in the notes below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. The next video could be something that you've recommended or suggested. So until next time, take care.